off your engine!
Rashawn Reed said, Scotty, I just realized I bought a rebuilt car. 14 Lexus GS, 70,000 miles. Looks like an accident happened on the driver's side, but looks and drives fine. Should I be worried? If you mean you know it's rebuilt because the title says rebuilt, that means it was totaled by an insurance company and it had some serious damage. It wasn't just a door. And if that's the case, whatever you paid, I would try to sell it as fast as I could. And if you did buy it from a dealer, car dealer, any car dealer, and they didn't tell you it had a rebuild title, but then when you get the title that says rebuild, they're supposed to tell you, sue them, and you'll get all your money back. You'll get triple your money in Texas because that's fraud, and it's triple damages from them not telling you that it had a rebuild title because they would know it. They're the ones with the title. So don't trust anybody when it comes to that stuff. You bought it at a car lot, by law, they're bonded by the states. They'll have money in bonds to pay your money back if they didn't tell you that in the first place. They have to tell you. That's the law. That's blah, 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 blah. But the law is they have to tell you things that are wrong. And if it has a rebuild title, they have to tell you. eBay says, what's your opinion on the 2020 Jeep Grand Cherokee 3.6-liter V6 Pentastar? When Fiat took over Chrysler, the quality went, it continues to go. Those V6 engines, they are a little better than they used to be, but they were absolute trash when they first came out. I would not waste the kind of money that you got to spend for a 2020 Jeep, and its value plummets like a rock going down Niagara Falls. You don't want to buy one of those new and then decide 4 years later you're going to get rid of it. You will lose your shirt. You want a four-wheel drive vehicle? Get a Toyota or a Honda. Don't buy that Jeep. Daniel DeLuca says, Scotty, why do big truck engines are made more durable than car engines? Because they have to. One, they're pulling big, heavy things. And two, they're being bought by companies. And the companies have CPAs and all their accountants see what comes in, what goes out. How much money do they spend? How many dollars per how many miles driven of these big trucks do they spend? And if somebody makes a crappy big truck engine, guess what? Nobody buys them anymore. They go buy them from somebody else. Commercial stuff is a completely different ballgame. People buy a big diesel truck. They expect to get over 1 million miles out of that thing. They're not going to make cars that way because it's sold to the mass public, and so they want to sell them and have them break and sell them and have them break. For some reason, people accept more crap than they used to. But the big companies won't. If somebody makes bad diesel engines, everyone will say, don't buy that brand. It's a piece of crap. Buy this brand over here. It's better. They have to make them better. Plus, if they're diesels, you got to make diesel engines stronger because diesel engines have compression ignition, a lot more pressure inside. You have to make them stronger. Gasoline engines can be made somewhat cheaper because there's less pressure inside. Zuriel G says, Scotty, what's a good mechanic's tool set under $150? I would say go to AutoZone and make your own. The sets that they sell are kind of garbagey. You don't know what's going on with them. But you go and pick which ones you want at AutoZone. They sell pretty good tools. I'd say go there. Or if you got a decent pawn shop in your neighborhood, go to a pawn shop. Pick out the tools you want. You get pawn shop tools, they barter too. You can usually get them for 10 cents on a dollar. Because I know when guys are in a hurry and they're a mechanic, they go to a pawn shop, the guys give them like 3 cents on a dollar what they paid for the tools. So you can get it pretty cheap there. Number one YouTuber says, Scotty, what are your thoughts on a 12V 5.9 Cummins? Cummins makes excellent engines. Those are great engines. Unfortunately, people aren't buying them like they used to. Cummins makes excellent diesel engines. Now, a lot of Ram trucks used to have them, but then they stopped putting them in. Of course, now, what does Ram have? They call them eco-diesels. They're piece of crap Italian-made diesel engines. Bad enough they call them eco. Diesels are not eco. They pollute. They're diesels. They have incomplete combustion. But that as it said, I've seen some of those eco diesels blow at 30, 40, 50,000 miles. They're terrible engines. When they had the Cummins, no. I got a customer who came over here last week with his Cummins, had 350K on that Cummins engine. It still ran like a top. It may burn a little bit of oil, but it still ran pretty good. The guy had it in his work truck. And they used it to bring bore machines around. It carried a lot of weight and it worked fine. But a lot of people don't use them anymore. I guess it's because they cost too much because they're too well made. Hank J says, Scotty, what do you think of a 1999 Honda Civic standard transmission? Oh, right, those things can run forever. The standard transmissions in a Honda Civic. I had a customer when he had 550,000 miles on that thing, and it still ran pretty good. They were really well made. Now, I've had customers get automatic Civics, and if they drove really hard, they could have problems. because they're not as strong as the standards. But you get a standard transmission Civic, those things can basically last forever, as long as you keep it out of flood water and change the fluid every once in a while. Big Belt Precinct says, Scotty, I got a Hyundai Elantra 2010. I saw oil on the spark plug. Should I change the valve cover gasket? Yes, if the whole top of the spark plug is covered in oil, change the gasket and change the spark plug tube seal. If the engine has spark plug tube seals, you change those too. Now, if it's on the inside and the firing end, yeah, that means that your piston rings or something's leaking and the engine's in rough shape. But a lot of times it's just the valve cover gasket. And if it has it, the spark plug tube seals. They come with the gasket set. Cheap ones don't have them, but the good ones do. Hag Dan says, Scotty, what do you think of a 2012 Crosstour? Well, that's fascinating, because a few weeks ago I worked on one, and it was an excellent car. The customer inherited it from his father, and he said he wanted to take care of it. He didn't want to have to put a bunch of money into it, so he had me look it over. I couldn't find anything wrong with it. They're well made. They didn't sell that many. I don't know why. That's a marketing thing. The V6 engines are excellent. They were really well made cars. When they were new, they were really overpriced, but he got his for nothing. He inherited it. The resale values, you can usually get a pretty good price on one. Matthew Dennison says, Scotty, love the channel. I got a 2008 Mercury Milan 3.0 V6 with some white smoke on startup when it was chilly. Any thoughts? Probably it was just because it was cold and a little heat comes out. Can only get that kind of smoke from a few things. One is, if your head gasket is starting to go, you get white smoke because that's steam. It's burning the coolant and water. The other one is, your engine is running way too rich. It can actually smoke white because there's too much fuel. And the last one is, if you got an oil burner, like if you got bad valve seals, when you turn the engine off, the oil leaks into the engine, and when you start it up, you get a little white smoke. Pray it's either just because it's cold, or it burns a little bit of oil. Oil's cheap. Engine rebuilds on. You can just live with that. Johnny Burns says, Scotty, what happens if you put ATF in standard transmissions? Depends on the vehicle. A few years back, Volvo had standard transmissions that came with automatic transmission fluid. They were built for automatic transmission fluids. In most cases, standard transmission fluid is a thick gear oil. It's often like an 80/90 weight oil, a thick oil, because the gears are just splash lubrication. The gears throw the oil up and they splash down on the gears, and you need a little bit thicker oil. But like I say, the Volvo had automatic in it, so it's supposed to. But if you put lightweight automatic transmission fluid into a heavyweight oil transmission, it's not going to lubricate right because it's too thin. You can have problems with it. MacMan B says, can changing your oil too frequently lead to problems? No, just have clean oil and you empty your pocketbook too fast. The cleaner the oil in the engine, the better, of course, Generally, if you change it every 4,000 to 5,000 miles with modern oil and filters, that's perfectly fine. You're not going to do any damage. Or once a year if you don't drive very many miles. Won't hurt anything if you keep changing it, you're just throwing your money away. Albert Einstein says, Scotty, please tell me, how can I maintain my car battery? Depends on what kind of battery you have. A lot of the batteries these days are sealed batteries. There's nothing to do except every once in a while take the battery terminals off and clean off any corrosion, put them back on, and then spray the terminals with battery terminal protector spray that keeps acid from building up. You can do that. Now, if you have a battery that can be opened up, they have battery acid and distilled water inside. There's plates. As long as the plates are covered, it's fine. If you look and some of them, the plates aren't covered, then fill them all up so all the plates are covered with distilled water. But most of the batteries you can't add to anymore. So just check the terminals, make sure the battery's on tight so it doesn't bounce around and get loose. Metal Fighter 1 says, I got a 2003 Ford Explorer. It started to smell like gasoline. How do I find the problem? Real easy. Watch my video. Does your car smell of gasoline? I tell you everything you can check. Maybe it's just the stupid gas cap is loose or the rubber seal's gone. Buy another gas cap. They're cheap. Follow all the stuff in my video, like when it does smell, quick, open hood, look around, see if the fuel injector's leaking. A lot of times the rubber seal's on the top or the bottom leak, and then it'll be wet around that one fuel injector. Look at the hoses. If you have rubber hoses, see if they're leaking, see if clamps are loose. A lot of stuff you can check. Romano McGravy says, Scotty, what do you usually eat? You eat rice. Do you have any diet plans? Thanks. I eat anything. I'm like a pig. People are like pigs. We're omnivores. We eat anything. But I try to watch what I eat, or I should say my wife tries to make me watch what I eat. Because really, I'm on a seafood diet all the time. I see food, I eat it. But I try to control myself. I don't go hog wild with oddball things like I don't drink soda anymore. I did when I was young. But that sugar water's no good for you anyways. I drink a lot of plain old water. Not bottled water, just plain old water. I do eat rice, but I eat everything. Barbecue. I like Vietnamese banh mi sandwiches. I like all kinds of food. As you get old like me, you got to watch it. Because if you eat like you did when you were a teenager, you'll end up like Marlon Brando. handle. And you'll be 400 something pounds.
So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.